Released in 1991 for the NES, The Simpsons, Bart vs. the Space Mutants was one of the first video game adaptations of the wildly popular Simpsons television show. Developed by Imagineering, Inc. and published by Acclaim Entertainment, the game set the tone for many more Simpsons video games to follow. At the time, The Simpsons was becoming a pop culture phenomenon, and a game adaptation was inevitable. While the game itself has been the subject of both praise and criticism due to its high difficulty and sometimes frustrating mechanics, it remains a beloved piece of nostalgia for fans of The Simpsons and retro gamers alike. In the early 90s, The Simpsons was quickly becoming one of the most iconic animated TV shows ever, and video game adaptations were seen as a natural way to extend the franchise's reach. Imagineering, Inc., a small development studio, was tasked with translating the unique humor, style, and world of The Simpsons into a video game format. Headed by Gary Kitchen, Imagineering was responsible for a number of licensed titles, and Bart vs. the Space Mutants was one of their most ambitious projects at the time. Acclaim Entertainment, the publisher, was well known for securing rights to popular franchises and releasing games based on licensed properties. Though many of their games were criticized for low quality, Bart vs. the Space Mutants stood out due to its innovative gameplay mechanics, strong connection to the TV show, and colorful graphics, which captured the look of the animated series. Given the limitations of the NES hardware, the developers at Imagineering had to come up with creative solutions to fit the vibrant world of Springfield and its characters into an 8-bit game. This included distinct, cartoon-like visuals and plenty of references to the show's characters and humor. The plot is one of those quirky, offbeat stories that fits well within the world of The Simpsons. The game begins with Bart Simpson discovering that aliens known as the Space Mutants have invaded Earth. These creatures plan to build a weapon to conquer the planet, and their first step is to gather specific materials to complete it. Bart, being the mischievous and imaginative kid he is the only one who knows about the aliens and their plans. Armed with his trusty skateboard, slingshot, and an assortment of other items, Bart sets out to stop the Space Mutants by foiling their collection efforts. In each level, the aliens are after a specific material, whether it's purple objects, hats, balloons, or exit signs, and Bart must find a way to get rid of or hide these items before the aliens can gather them. Of course, Bart isn't completely alone. Throughout the game, various members of the Simpson family and other Springfield residents make cameo appearances, offering assistance to Bart in his quest. But it's ultimately up to Bart to save the day and protect Springfield from the alien invasion. At its core, the game is a side-scrolling platformer, but it incorporates a number of unique mechanics that set it apart from other games in the genre. The gameplay is a blend of platforming, puzzle solving, and collecting, with a heavy emphasis on interacting with the environment in creative ways. Each of the game's 5 levels has a unique objective, typically centered around preventing the Space Mutants from collecting a specific material. In the first level, for example, the aliens are gathering anything purple. Bart's goal is to change, hide, or destroy purple objects around Springfield before the aliens can get them. This means you'll be spray painting objects, knocking hats off people's heads, popping balloons, and performing other mischievous tasks that align with Bart's character. The objectives change from level to level, keeping the gameplay fresh and requiring players to think outside the box in terms of how they interact with the environment. For example, Level 1. Prevent aliens from collecting purple objects. Level 2. Prevent aliens from collecting hats. Level 3. Stop the collection of balloons. Level 4. Keep exit signs out of alien hands. Level 5. Defeat aliens in the nuclear power plant. Throughout the game, Bart can use a variety of items to help him complete his objectives. His slingshot is his primary weapon for defeating enemies or interacting with objects, but he can also pick up other useful items, such as rocket shoes to reach high places or spray paint to change the color of objects. Players must be resourceful in using these items to solve puzzles, such as figuring out how to spray paint purple objects or making aliens reveal themselves by knocking off their disguises. The inventory system adds a light puzzle-solving element to the platforming action, and many players enjoyed experimenting with different gadgets to see what worked best in each situation. Throughout the game, Bart faces not only the Space Mutants, but also Springfield residents who have been brainwashed by the aliens. Common enemies include town members like Principal Skinner and Krusty the Clown, though some are simply NPCs that need to be avoided or interacted with to complete level objectives. Each level also ends with a boss fight, which usually involves one of the more prominent characters from the TV show, such as Nelson Muntz or Sideshow Bob. These boss fights add a layer of challenge to the game, requiring players to learn attack patterns and use Bart's tools strategically. The game features large, open levels that allow for exploration and experimentation. Unlike many platformers of the era, Bart vs. the Space Mutants gives players some freedom in how they approach objectives. Hidden items and secret areas encourage players to explore every nook and cranny of each level, adding to the game's replayability. One of the defining aspects of Bart vs. the Space Mutants is its notoriously high difficulty level. The game requires precise platforming, quick reflexes, and a lot of trial and error. Many players found the controls to be stiff and unforgiving, especially when it came to using items or navigating obstacles. The game also features limited lives and continues, making it a true test of endurance for even the most skilled NES players. Bart vs. the Space Mutants was the very first Simpsons video game, paving the way for many other games based on the franchise. Its release coincided with the growing popularity of the show, and the game helped cement The Simpsons as a multimedia powerhouse. The game features numerous references to the TV show, from familiar locations like Moe's Tavern and the Quick E-Mart to appearances by popular characters like Marge, Lisa, and Homer. These details helped make the game feel like an authentic part of the Simpsons universe. Although it was originally released on the NES, Bart vs. the Space Mutants was later ported to several other systems, including the Sega Genesis, Amiga, and Commodore 64. Each version had slight differences in graphics and sound, but the core gameplay remained the same. The game's music was composed by Mark Van Hecke, who managed to capture the quirky, upbeat tone of The Simpsons with catchy chiptune tracks. While the NES sound capabilities were limited, the music added to the charm and helped set the mood for each level. Bart vs. the Space Mutants received mixed reviews upon release. While many players appreciated the game's creativity and connection to the Simpsons universe, others were frustrated by the high difficulty and clunky controls. Despite these criticisms, the game developed a cult following over the years, particularly among Simpsons fans. Depending on how many objectives you complete and how many items you collect throughout the game, players can experience different endings. This replayability factor encouraged players to return to the game to try and improve their performance, though reaching the best ending was a significant challenge. The Simpsons, Bart vs. the Space Mutants for the NES, was a unique, ambitious adaptation of one of the most beloved TV shows of all time. Despite its challenging gameplay and high difficulty, it remains a fondly remembered part of Simpsons history and a notable entry in the NES library. With its creative level design, quirky humor, and ties to the Simpsons universe, the game provided a fresh take on the platformer genre at the time of its release. For fans of the show or retro gaming enthusiasts looking for a challenging experience, Bart vs. the Space Mutants offers a mix of nostalgia, frustration, and fun, a true reflection of Bart Simpson's mischievous character.